は得意だった。かけたままだってごまかし笑っていた。足りなくなって補って届かなくて、誰もがきっと見失って生きづらさの理由を知る。呼吸はまだ続くか。一息で貫くためには少し苦しいだろう。許せいった我らが行くことを、今埋める時を見事かしゃぎきれても道だけは続いている。その美しさもあれにも大河に消えるだから残りかすかせずね。まだ進んでいけ進んでいけ夜を越えて。間違えたままだって歩くのは得意だった。かけたままだってごまかし笑っていた。足りなくなって補って届かなくて、誰もがきっと見失って生きづらさの理由を知る。呼吸はまだ続くか。一息で貫くためには少し苦しいだろう。許せいった我らが行くことを、今埋める時を見事かしゃぎきれても道だけは続く。
Good evening. We are picking up where we left off on Friday. Congratulations, Jake Straw, on being first. I've kind of forgotten the plot, but I'm sure I'll figure it out along the way. Alright, it seems like I've done all the digressions that I could, so... Speaking of plot, I suppose it's time for that. The most important thing, of course, is saving Tamamo Arya.
彼ら
Have they
は
departed?
ならば
In that case,
ここまで来れば
this should be far enough. Also, I noticed that she's got 2 swords as well. Also, forgive me if I sound a little bit strained. I had another stomachache this morning. My regeneration is
再生も
proceeding without
滞り
issue.
これならば
It should not take very much longer. Regeneration is a very odd choice of word.
今は時が惜しい。高尾
Time
の
is
もとに
precious.
急ごう。
We must hurry to Takao. I am quite pleased to see everybody here today. Not for any particular reason, just in general. I thought that there was a girl here who did side quests. Evidently not. Engraved sake bottle. I just yoinked this man's alcohol. That's what he gets for leaving it within yoinking distance of a fox, though. Sir,
貴殿は
aren't you Darius? Did something happen?
高尾姉様が
Madame Takao is... Have you any idea where she could be?
高尾
Wait, is Takao not here?
今朝方から
I've not seen her nor her bodyguard since this morning. Oh, is something happened to her? I couldn't bear the thought.
落ち着け
Calm down.
俺たちも
We'll
探し
find
て
her.
何か分かったらすぐ
We'll
知ら
tell
せ
you
る
as soon as we find out anything. Please just wait for a while longer.
主様
Sir, please do. I beg of you.
なんだ
What's this? Has Tsuji Mikado sent something our way?
すいません
We must find out. Let's go save her. Lady Yamabuki, stay here. There was an awful scream from the north last night. I jumped right out of bed. There was an awful scream from the south 15 seconds ago. Maybe you should go back to bed. You're clearly out of it.
なんだ土見門とは縁なのしかしなんだか様子がおかしい気をつけろよ
Void's style continues to be endlessly entertaining. Oh, well that my chat is not automatically moving. Yeah, she's the storm that's approaching, exactly. I'm like one of those hurricanes that people don't take seriously and then, like, trees fall through their front doors. I just got laid out while I was intangible. I gotta respect that, honestly. You don't know what it is about these to give Persona / SMT vibes? It's probably like how wiggly they are while they're being, It's probably how wiggly they are, like in their neutral stance. Especially like Persona enemies tend to wiggle a lot. And I'm not doing incredibly well, but my excuse is that I haven't played in a little while. And I had a tummy ache. Yeah, luckily I'm doing better now, but it very much does, like, linger for a bit when it happens. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, this entire fight has kind of just been, like, not a good look for me. I'll try to lock in a bit better. The fish looked good yesterday? Oh no, do we all have tummy aches? You forget to eat, that's a thing that I do a lot as well. I would tell you how I handle it, but I kind of just don't. And like, I'll feel hungry eventually. Well, Yori kind of consumed his entire body weight in rice, but I did get through that fight. You saved me. Oh, thank you so much. No thanks is necessary. You need to go somewhere safe. Actually, there's something else. What is it? My friends. Please, could you save them too? We were separated after being attacked by spirits. Those two might still be in trouble. What do you think, Yori? Of course we'll help you. Why don't you ask when the answer was obvious, favorite? I wonder. Thank you. One of my friends ran down the main street and the other to the north, I think. Oh, thank you for the hydration. Please find them both. I see a thing to pick up here. It belongs to me now. And another thing over here. This also belongs to me now. But that one's a wriggling tongue. Maybe I don't want that one, actually. Mother of Pearl hairpin. Nice. Don't come any closer, you monster. Is this the first blue one I've seen? Oh, there she is. Stand back, we'll take care of this. I feel like I've seen these before, actually. You know, come to think of it, wouldn't Mother of Pearl just be, like, an oyster? Like, I don't actually know what Mother of Pearl is. I've simply given up on the notion of staying high health provide stance. I am now in fire stance. Are you hurt? I'm fine. But what in the world is happening to this city? Monsters today, giants the day before. I can't stand being so scared all the time. Huh? What's that about a giant? Hold up, something just went funky with my Twitch. Alright. Haven't you heard about the giant man that left Yoshiwara last night? I just happened to see him. He was so scary I can't even describe it. He must have been 8 feet tall and he kept roaring as he charged about. I couldn't sleep at all after that. Oh, it was awful. I see. Please be careful. Take care. Goodbye. A terrifying giant, huh? I suppose he could look scary at night. She'd feel differently if she saw him in the middle of the day. He's more impressive than scary. Yeah, a giant man. It must be the rogue berserker. And so she said that he'd regained his sanity and returned to Yoshiwara, but... was she wrong? Or could Tsuchimikata be controlling him? If he's being controlled, we can't let him run free. He's a powerful servant. We must find him. Dayu and Master must also be pursuing him. If we hurry, we can beat them. Right, but we must save the other friend of that woman first. Of course. Your sister loves oysters but refuses to eat scallops because they're gross and slimy. I mean, sometimes you do just have like weird hang-ups like that. Like, I enjoy lobster, but you couldn't pay me to eat a spider. Don't worry about me. You must get away from here quickly. What nonsense. I'm a constable of Edo. I would sooner split my own belly than stand by as the people of Edo die. Sukinoshin. Oh, Iori, what impeccable timing. Could you give me a hand here? I can't seem to pierce this monster's hide. Understood. Let's work together. Thanks a bunch. You got this. Well, I suppose it'll be easier to fight without him now. You know, Sukinoshin hasn't been leveling up his shell break. So, like, not wanting anything to do with this makes sense. Oh, whoops. Not gonna lie, I completely forgot which button did what for a second there. Also, yes, spiders technically aren't insects, but like... in practice, they're basically insects. I wonder if I can line things up such that I can hit the Oni and the Lantern with a Valor Strike at the same time. Oh, hey. Seriously, I'm going into battle and I require your strongest spells.
私を頼りにしてくれよ
Yeah, they're dead. You know, spiders are friends. They're creepy crawlies, but they're friends.
ありがとう助かったわ
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Iori. You're a lifesaver. I really thought it was done for when I saw that monster during patrol. Well, anyway, it all worked out. Thank you for the head pats. I appreciate them.
九死に一生と
He's
いう
lucky
や
to be
つだな
alive. Hehe.
しかし
It's rare to find you patrolling in Yoshiwara. You always try to avoid it. Oh, well, you know, it's been so dangerous lately and all. I am a constable of Edo, right? I thought I should do all I can to keep the city safe.
なんだ
What is this? Some kind of document? Hey, don't.
吉原再建か
It looks like a visitor's guide to Yoshiwara. Doing all you can, eh? Yeah, this was the chance of a lifetime for brave Tsukunoshin. Yoshiwara can be terribly perilous at night, but I'm sure you can tackle it single-handed. Yeah?
気にするな
Don't worry about it. Let's see off. Right, after that rogue berserker. Exactly. However, we must first notify Lady Yamabuki. Okay, he's not gonna let me cash out those quests right about now. Oh well. Is that so? Then Madame and her bodyguard have departed Yoshiwara. Yes, almost certain.
ありがとうござりんす
Thank you ever so
メイ様
dearly, sir. It does put my mind somewhat at
俺
ease.
たちは太夫たちを
We'll go after Daio. You must be worried, but bear with us for a little while longer.
心
I
待
await
ち
your
にしてお
return.
りん
I know that
す
she will be in good hands.
さーて
Mind if I'm berserker, Iori?
問題は
The only problem is where to
あ
start.
る程度当たりをつける他
I
にない
suppose we'll just have to guess and take our chances.
バーサーカーが操ら
If
れている
Berserker
と
is
して
being controlled, what do you think he's being used
術
for?
者は彼をどのように使う
My first thought is like brute forcing through a battlefield.
あれだけの強靭な体育と力
With
だ
his incredible strength, they may intend to use him as a fortress. Yes, I feel the same, which
こ
means
たびの術者は土帝
the one controlling him is
奴
Tsujimikado.
の居所は
He was in Kaneji, right?
そうだ
That's right. Shosetsu confirmed that he was at the temple.
はいわかった
There we go. No time to delay. Onwards to Kaneji. Oh, do I finally get to do another ley line conflict?
小説様
Lord Shosetsu?
浅草より戻られて
It has not been long since you returned from Asakusa. If you are not yet recovered,
大事ない用
I'm
向きは
fine. Now, what is it?
は
Of course, our scouts in Yoshiwara report that Miyamoto Iori has headed for Ueno. That's where Arya is. We can save her
そう
meeting.
か
I see.
小説先生
Grandmaster Shosetsu?
貴殿らか
Ah, I apologize, but I don't have time
小
to...
説先生
Grandmaster
ご無事で
Shosetsu,
すか
are you alright?
昨夜辻斬りに
We heard
襲
that
わ
you were
れたと
attacked by the Tsujigiri. Did anything were to happen to you?
辻切り
Tsujigiri... yes, I was, but I tended him off.
そうでしたか
Oh, thank goodness.
それは
どうした
Why are
よ
you...
かった
I'm
本当
glad,
に
so
よか
very
った
glad. I was so worried.
先生がご無事
Knowing that
で
you're okay is
そし
just...
たバッキャ
Don't cry. You're in front of the Grandmaster.
もやさ
I
ほ
think
ど
that
に
they'd
あ
all
き
be
られ
so
よう
worried
と
over
は
me.
主
My liege, if I may ask, why do you associate with such
門
ruffians?
弟のことか。
My students, you mean? Yes. What good will come of consorting with them? They are like pitiful moths drawn to flame. They offer no worth or benefit to you.
口を慎めライダー。
Watch your tongue, Ryder. You are
彼
not
ら
to
を
speak
阻
ill
し
of them.
彼らもまた不条理に
They
あえ
are
ぐ婿なれ
innocents
ば
suffering under this world's cruelty. I could never cast them aside.
我が願い。
You can laugh if you find my wish so absurd. But even if only for the ritual's duration, I am your master, and you will be my
ラ
sword.
イダー。
Ryder, with your power, even my foolish dreams may be made reality.
霊樹の一角でも二角でも
If you wish, I would even offer up one or two command spells. What say you? You are pure of heart indeed, my master. I would never dream of laughing at you. The cries of your heart reached my ears the moment I materialized in this world. Yui Shosetsu, you are correct. Allow me to make a vow. My soul, this blade, and even my spirit core and spirit origin. I offer it all for the sake of your wish.
ならば我が策に
My
て
plan may test
そ
your
の覚
resolve.
悟を問う。
Do not regret your words. Never.
ライダー。
Ryder, you are too.
ライダ
Ryder,
ー。かの日の誓い。
will you keep the vow that you made that day? Oh, we are, in fact, doing a ley line. Awesome. Alright, let's see what we're dealing with.
やはり結界
Of
が
course, there's a battlefield here too. We can't best their magic. Gather magical energy from the ley line to break through.
まずは上野からか
Shall we start from Ueno then? Let's go. It appears that the ley line has caused Rogue Caster to leave your party.
日和あれは何だ
We have to go there together for that, right? I think we do.
あの幼子が舐
Didn't
め
the
ているの
boss
は
make something like what that child is gnawing on?
あれは飴細工という
Those are sugar sculptures. You can find them in Babylonia and all sorts of places.
水飴をこねて
You need a thick, sugary syrup into various shapes.
昔のカヤは猫が好
Kai
きで
used to like cats, so she would always beg me for a cat-shaped one. Heh,
いいな
that sounds
そ
nice.
れは
Ah, the one that child is holding might be a fish. Yeah? Eh? Huh? Did the flow of magical energy change?
バカな
Preposterous! To think that Tsujimikado could twist a ley line?
まあまあ
Let's launch onto conclusions, Grandpa. We must move carefully now.
セイバーいけるか
あ
And then we split up. Saber go this way, Yori go this way. Well, that's just rude, is what that is. Right, popped that guy.
良いぞ
Perfect, now we can move forward without mutants combat.
我らが地敵に狙われておるぞ
They can have that one.
より
Yori, is this part of the plan? Yeah?
敵か
Enemies, huh? Let's proceed with caution. Nice, the enemy's retreating. Way to send them packing. I will pass a turn here. Wait, what? I'm not playing a multi-world randomizer. Consultant, what are you on about? Hold on. Let's just turn that off. Rejoin with Saber? No. Oh wait, I thought Saber had a thing. Alright, whatever. Oh, Saber's thing is there, so we do want to go there together. But if I go there... while letting him move, I'll get myself cut off, so...
そうじゃ。なんじゃこの妙な魔力は。
What's this strange energy? It's drifting here from south of Leno.
動く気配はないな。
Whatever it is, it's staying in its position.
敵か。
Is it an enemy or a trap? Or a spell? I can't tell. I'd rather not get close to it. It's not a conversation icon, that's a destination marker? Oh. Oh, I thought that was a conversation icon. That explains some things. That explains some things. Okay. I'll go fight this guy now.
始まったか。どうした。受けてみろ。
And then I got squinched.
押し切る。見えている。どうした。当たりはしない。遅いな。逃げた。遅いな。
I noticed that the timer counts down in real time regardless of, like, whether or not my attacks are doing, like, dramatic slowdown or not. I have much to learn of the way of two swords. Right, Saber can go that way. Leno is breakable. Wait, that'll give me the whole thing? What? Alright. What's wrong, Yori? The field won't break. I was sure that we gathered enough telluric energy, though. It is strange. It could be another of Junkado's spells. Full-fledged magic users are such a pain. We need to investigate the area first. He's gotta deal with that first, then. That's fine. Why do I not own this one already? I should. There we go. I don't see anything unusual other than that. That over there, right? We'll have to find out what it is. I will rejoin this neighbor. And yeah, may as well... may as well just go there. Yeah, I've been waiting for you, my darling kid with City. So it was you, Roadcaster. What are you doing here? I thought you might be having some trouble, so I graciously came to your rescue. Do you mean the battlefield in Leno? Yep, this humongous spell cast over this whole area. And it makes people see non-existent spirit fonts and illusionary ley lines. Oh, I see, like some kind of illusion magic. You couldn't tell who I was before you got here, right? Well, there you go. But don't you worry, your pretty little head. It's nothing for a magical maestro like me. Is it the real ley line? So that's why we couldn't break through the field.
感心してお
Not
る
trying to be impressed,
場合
Yuri.
かより
We're relying on a thread of a ley line for telluric energy.
さて
Well, sorry, but that's about all I can do for you. Being a rogue servant is all kinds of
い
inconvenient.
や十分だ
No, you've done more than enough. I really appreciate it. First fellas, how could they possibly? We've got company. That Tsujimikado must have realized that we broke through his spell.
肝心の術は破
We
ったん
broke the
だ
most important spell. Let's show him he's just wasting his time. Alright, let's break straight through, Yori. Yori, we is a strong word when Caster did all the work.
頼むステイバー
任せてお
Saber goes that way, Yori goes this way. They'll get that, but that's not too big of a deal if I use them. Yeah, this is fine.
ねそ
I'll go here, and then I'll go here.
よいぞ
And then I go here, and I'll catch everything. And then Saber can do the fighting, because Saber is Saber. You guys telling me how to use my Noble Phantasm as if I need it.
相手が悪かったな
You chose the wrong opponent. And then we can reconvene in Ueno. Ooh, foxes.
邪魔だ
That means that I know there's going to be one of the big ones later. So I can use my Noble Phantasm on that. More rebel to deal with.
清き水よたゆたい流れ海へと至りて
You
星
know,
をなせ
given that they're like fish, I feel like hitting them with water wouldn't accomplish much.
怒涛
It'd be like if I was in a fight with somebody and they were just like, aha, I shall turn on a fan and point it in your direction. And it is dead.
まあこんな
I
ものだ
suppose I shouldn't have expected much. The telluric energy is overflowing. You're certainly coming along as a sorcerer. No, Saber, come this way. Only me able to be already connected to this location. That's fine. Saber, I want you to... Saber, I want us both to come here at the same time. Saber. Fine, I'll just call them back. Make me spend two affinity each points, whatever.
なんとも
so he peels off. Be careful, Yori.
気をつけて進めよより
like I was spending them. I spend them tactically. I can't open it. Is the gate locked? Iori, do you not see the pentagram? Drawn in blood. Glowing. This gate is sealed by magic. It must be Tsujimikado's work. My noble phantasm would break through, but I can't use it. Let's look for another way. Able to claim power from this area and unlock Arya's skill tree. Awesome. I wanted power from Arya. A boat? Huh. Shall we use this to cross the pond? Oh, what a stroke of luck. Or maybe not. This boat doesn't have any oars. We got excited too soon. Yeah, don't look so glum, Grandpa. With that look in your eye, you must have something brewing. Yeah, Saber's hydrokinetic, we're fine. Alright, get on everybody. I'll get us through this side in one stroke. One stroke, eh? You learned the following link strike and corresponding affinity technique at Shipwreck. Alright. Oh, how refreshing. Right, I'll take you for another ride anytime you want. We needed a cross, but it was fairly conspicuous. Shinderu. I like how we had to stop to kill a bunch of things instead of just like using the one boat to go the whole way. Oh well. I shall leave none alive. These poor foxes. They didn't ask to be bathed. You think of them as foshes? I see where you're coming from with that. The nice thing about fighting magical monsters is that I'm getting a lot of gems back. I'd kind of been burning through those.
出番だな。我らが刃突き立てる。ふっ行くぞ。いつでも良いぞ。より
燃え盛るホムラのごとく。
And he's dead. That took some doing. Let's hope it's smooth sailing from now on. Well, it'll be smooth if anybody but Saber is driving. But it'll be fast if Saber is driving. And that's kind of the more important thing, I think. Drat, this gate won't open either. It's sealed tight by magic. What you do, Iori? We'll never get to Kanaichi at this rate. What a pleasure to see you again, Miyamoto Iori. Have you been here all along, taking the scenic route? Well, that gate is still on the way. We can't break through. But of course, it is a major stronghold after all. It's designed to be a fortified workshop. You think of it as a type of fortress. Then we are sieging a castle. Thanks for the warning. Lady Dorothea, what of assassin? Nothing, I'm afraid. I remained dispossessed of my servant. I followed his trail, but, well, you and I seem to be headed in the same direction. Seems so. Shall we join forces again? Iori, are you sure? You were taken for quite a ride the last time round. My, what a colorful way of putting it. I am simply in the right place at the right time. So you say. You can certainly trust me this time. I'll show you just why a workshop like this means nothing to Dorothea Quiet. Just like that. Well, well, nicely done, madam. Shall we proceed? Wait, I sense enemies on the other side. I'll sweep them away with a spell. Oh, there's spluters. Oh, an ambush. You surely are perceptive. No, I think I'll leave it to you all. Oh, 8 legs and so many eyes. I'm sure you can handle this on your own. Is that understood? Eh? Is she afraid of spiders? Hello? Stop looking at me and take care of it. We were just talking about spiders earlier. Yeah, to be fair, if spiders were this big and like explicitly like human consuming, or I guess fox consuming in my case, I'd probably be more afraid of them too. And it's dead. We must press on. So, fun fact. The reason why spiders kind of like curl up when they die, they don't have muscles. They actually actuate their limbs with essentially hydraulic pressure. So when they die, the pump isn't pumping and they just kind of constrict into their neutral pose because like nothing's pushing them out of place. That's mildly terrifying. A monster, eh? I don't think it's noticed us yet. Wait a moment, I'll prepare a spell. Don't waste your power on such a trivial foe. Watch this, Iori, Dorothea. And off our hero goes. Do you not hold the reins of your own servant? More of a great bird in flight than a horse. No reins would fit. This is indeed a new way. Reveal throw takes 2 damage. The purple circle thing that I'm depleting is called the shell gauge. It's going to take basically no damage until I deplete that, then it'll start getting torn to pieces. The shell gauge regenerates, the health doesn't. And it's dead. There's nothing like the real thing. Iori's katon is useful, but it can't compare to Dorothea's talents. Foreign magic, quite impressive. With such high praise, you could at least listen when I give you instructions. You search forward, heedless of traps. It makes me nervous. That's Saber for you, a veritable wellspring of energy. Evidently, Assassin's not an average heroic spirit either, but Saber's sword is quite exceptional. I would love to know how you were able to summon such a powerful heroic spirit. I'm not sure, but I do know that a servant full of appetite would empty your purse. What is that, a Japanese joke? No, it's a Saber thing. They're all like this for some reason. There's not a soul on the street. Katsuji Mikado have ordered everybody to leave. Better equip them all to the foxfish things. Oh, I was kind of ignoring the dialogue there. Whoops. I'm just gonna assume that Dorothea is like, yeah. And it's dead. Oh, Dorothea. I presume you would have helped if you had been a little bit faster. Add Kinslayer to my resume after this encounter? No, they're like fish things, they're not foxes. I'm not a fish. Completed all local trials. Presumably they'll do something about— there we go. The main thing that I'm looking for— oh. I was gonna say I'm looking for the main spirit font, but it's actually gonna be in the northern bit up here. And it's gone. And I bet that gate is the thing that I'm after. It's her. I don't care about him. Again? Kaneichi is right ahead of us. We don't have the time to find another way around. If formidable opponents block the way, then we go through them. Iori? Dorothea? That is one possible avenue, yes. 2 dogs, oi. Tamamo's a fox.
同行するのは利害
Though
の
we share
一
common
から
interests, I am not yours to
あ
command.
うるさい
Enough jabbering. Be careful of that lancer, he will kill you.
は
What?
あミスター
Are you well, sir?
あれは確かに難敵
These
だ
are indeed formidable opponents. I was devising a plan of attack.
思案することはないわよ
There's no time for that. The two of you should fight them together.
申し合わせもなければ
Without practice or affinity, could the three of us truly fight as one?
いいえ戦えない
No, such makeshift measures will not serve. I will save my energy for an
私
emergency.
さ
Now be off.
まあ
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, then let us follow the lady's orders and be about it, Iori. I like how Arya has a giant sword that she just never uses. She's like, and I'll supervise.
いつでもよいこれはできん終わらせる
どう
合図をくれより放つ出番だな我らが刃ぜー引かせる
Ah, poor Ku. Oh, my bones. Please stop drilling through those, I need them. Thank you for the head pats. And the hydration. It's like, I don't know what the plan is if Ku at any point uses his Noble Phantasm, because, like, I don't think Iori or Saber have a way around it. Yeah, exactly, Gay Bulge time. Or Gay Bulge, rather. Also true, I guess he doesn't want to kill me. He's being forced to try, but he's not being forced to try particularly well. Oh, and there's Assassin. Newcomers, let's deal with them quick. Oh? This file of presents. Huh? You are... Warrior Saber. You escaped Sujimikado's spell? Sujimikado. Would he be the root of this evil?
俺たちはそう見ている
Looks that way to us.
今
It appears that many servants are now under his control. Understood. Heroes and legends of all time and space, my blade shall break your fetters. Oh, and now I'm Rogue Saber. Alright. I've completely forgotten how to play this character. Well, I watched the Nick first thing, so like, I'm clearly not doing it wrong. I wanted to hit Lancer with my Noble Phantasm right about now. Now I gotta go through his shell again. Or if not my Noble Phantasm, then at least the Valor Strike. I like how floaty Saber is. It's very ethereal. My health is getting a little bit low. Let's launch another bomb. And eat some rice. Is it just me or is it lagging? I feel like it's lagging. Oh well, not much I can do about that. Since kind of stream, like, the stream is fine, I mean, but like, I think the game is like, running slow. Right, he got his gel back. Get rid of that shell. Low-key getting combo, but that's okay. Yeah, the game's audio is fine, but like the actual gameplay is moving kind of really slowly, I'm finding. Oh, don't you both? No regenerating match health for you. And now there's only one target to focus on. And then he exploded. And he's dead. We're gonna take a 5-minute break here. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom. Anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I'll see you shortly. I return. We appreciate your assistance. No thanks are required. I simply do what must be done to rout the evil ogre. That saber is just as impressive as ever. Alright, let's get to Kaneishi. That's Berserker. Also, I agree, Rogue Saber is very cool. I like his aesthetic, I like his fighting style. Is he still possessed? This is going to be difficult, Yari. Even Archer and your teacher together were unable to do more than force him to retreat. Now, how shall we fight him? Is that the Rogue Berserker? A long-haired, bare-handed warrior? Oh my, do you happen to know the boy? Master, Daigo? Hey, Yari, what a coincidence. We were pursuing Berserker. We're headed for Kaneishi. It seems the Rogue Berserker is protecting the temple. A human shield, or rather, a heroic spirit shield, huh? So what's the plan? You, the foreign girl. You know his true name, don't you? Won't you tell us? It's Samson. It's 110% Samson. I almost said Hampson. The line must be stopped. I have to. Please. Lift your head. You are a master, yes? I am Assassin's Master Dorothea, and yes, I will tell you. If I am correct, Hampson's been seriously gets to him. That's good, I like that. If I'm correct, defeating him will require all of our cooperation. He is that powerful. The Rogue Berserker's true name is... Samson. At least I think so. He's a peerless warrior blessed by the Lord. The Lord? Yes, the sole god of the Western faith and omnipotent force. To put it differently, imagine that he was given power by all the Japanese gods and Buddhas. That's quite a way to put it. I don't know much about Buddhas, but I think I get it. No wonder he's so powerful. The world is vast. Such exceptional heroes must also exist. I'd not decline such an opponent, but there are a few things to check first. Miss, does Samson have any weaknesses? If he cut his hair, he becomes vulnerable. He does. When the Lord blessed Samson with strength, it was on the condition that he not cut his hair. Thus, if he managed to cut his hair, he will lose his power, according to the Bible. And the boy must have... Yes, that is how he died in the past. He confided his secret to the woman he loved, but he was betrayed. It is said that, just before his death, he became a raging tempest. Betrayed by a woman, huh? How unfortunate. I'd rather not subject him to similar heartache again. That said, whatever that means, I must stop the boy. Being forced to wreak such havoc, he must hate it. I may not understand what he's saying, but I know that's how he feels. I just know it. So, please help me, Musashi. Of course I will, Tayu. We'll take care of him. Everybody else, please watch the area. You identified him without us, Master, but that's... Pardon me, but were you about to say that your teacher cannot win? I'm just kidding. I'm not angry. But I am a bit serious, too. You have no cause for concern. Besides, if I need help, I won't hesitate to ask. You know, at first I was thinking Achilles, but then I was like, wait, no, Achilles would probably be a Lancer. And then like I saw how much emphasis they gave his hair, and I'm just like, yeah, that's Samson. The corner is not where I want to be. Ow, my bones. I should probably hit him with something. Use of that affinity that I'm generating. One more riposte or a few more hits will break that shell of his. This will be a riposte. I think I overestimated how good that attack was. Hi, my name is Musashi. You may be wondering how I ended up in this situation. Oh, he got his shell back. I didn't want that to happen. To be fair, I probably would have had equal levels of success fighting him the first time if he wasn't strong enough to one-shot me. It was mostly the fact that he could hit me once and kill me that was holding me back, I think. And then you guys scramble for a record scratch. I mean, I'm willing. I just need the hardware for it. He's gonna go for the grab. He's gonna get the grab. I called shenanigans on that one in particular, but whatever. And the good news is I do have my Noble Phantasm charge, so like... when I break his shell again, I can probably stop him from putting it up a third time. What is a God grab pound remind you of Godfrey? Do you mean Godric? Or I guess Godfrey too, yeah. Oh, I was right, awesome. It's probably because Godric does a similar ground pound, honestly. If I were to guess. Godfrey is the one with wrestling moves. See, that's a Godfrey thing. I got a Beybladed on his head. I wonder if Beyblade is still going. Like the anime. Oh, thank you for the rotation. I may not even need the Noble Phantasm. I'll take a clash. That feels like it was probably scripted. He smiles at her. And there goes the hair. Wait, he's not even controlled anymore. Like his eyes are free. We can stop stabbing him. Saber. Saber, stop running. Well, that's unfortunate if he's dead. I mean, it's not like I was ever going to use him in combat, but like, I'd like to have the option.
Samson, 私
Samson, I... Ooh, he said something lucid. And then he sparkled away, so he's like actually dead. Well, that's 2 of 15. Let's go. Rogue Berserker. Samson. Delilah. He's dead, but he unlocked his Noble Phantasm.
Minna, ありがとうね。
Thanks everybody for going along with my selfish whims. Don't you have places to be? Don't worry about me. And that goes for you too, Musashi. From now on, do whatever you please. Tayo, I've made up my mind. You know I never wanted to participate in this ritual from the get-go, right? I'll achieve my wish, our wish, with my own hand. I don't have to win this. I wouldn't sacrifice that boy just to help myself. Even I'm not that selfish. Well, Berserker not Saber Miyamoto Musashi. Wouldn't you rather leave your master and fight as you see fit? I mean, a bit. Just a little smidgen maybe. But I'm still your servant, you know. I should endeavor to fulfill my master's wish. My wish is for you to do as you please. For you to fulfill your own wish, Musashi. Oh, you were just waiting to use that line, weren't you? Maybe so. Well, if that's your wish, I better grant it. Yeah, like, presumably I can still use Samson in, like, battle recollections. The enemy is gone. All that remains in our way is the bounded field. We'll force our way through, and then we'll finally confront Tsujimikado. You might be getting ahead of yourself. Are there any other rogue servants? No, but... have you truly forgotten why I'm here? Assassin is coming. My body moves mountains. My fangs crush steel. Neither mortal nor immortal. Nor perfect nor imperfect. Incarnation, omen of the great guard Ibuki. This is Assassin's Noble Phantasm. I'm sure it's powerful, but like it's visually a little bit underwhelming. It's like he made a mecha out of noodles. I believe I'm supposed to be your prey, yes? My bad, my bad. I nearly lost myself to that forgotten scent of blood. Dorothea, as you reminded me, I shall consume you whole. Let's see you try. You played your part. Leave the rest to me. And then Assassin killed her, and then Assassin was like, oh shit, and then Assassin popped like a soap bubble. Saber, you're keen to learn Assassin's whereabouts, eh? Well, no wonder. Assassin's Noble Phantasm was astounding. And how? Nothing's made me tremble like that in some time. An otherworldly embodiment of violence. He must have been holding back this whole time. If Lady Dorothea hadn't drawn him away, then all of Reno would have been... Yep, destroyed to the ground by now. I wonder if she'll be able to escape. The odds are against her. Out of all servants, you will definitely won't want Assassin to be on your tail. You'll definitely won't want Assassin to be on your tail. Leave her alone and she'll most certainly die. Tsuchimikado or Assassin, it's your decision. That's right, we must decide now. Stop the ringleader Tsuchimikado or subdue Assassin while his Noble Phantasm is active. You could say, even if you ignored Assassin, he'd end up destroying himself by killing his own master. But that's merely one way to look at it. Well, what will you do, Iori? Okay, I guess this is like another divergence point. We don't have time to dither. Let me know when you've made up your mind. I will save my game. Yeah, Berserker's not even in the menu anymore. Have you decided? Yes, I'll... So the way I see it, if I fight Tsuchimikado, I save Arya. I'll attack Kaneshi and defeat Tsuchimikado. Okay, let's hurry to Kaneshi. Here's what I should say, but... Sorry, Iori, I'm in the mood to go destroy the snake god. Master, let her do as she wishes. Musashi has done much on account of my selfish whims up until now. I'd like her to fight as she sees fit for once. I understand. In that case, we shall go stop Tsuchimikado. You can do it. I'm lucky to have such a savvy master and a dutiful disciple. Let's check where the iron's hot. I, Miyamoto Musashi, shall thwart the snake god. Canon ending is save Dorothea in New Game Plus, so doing this in New Game makes the most sense than a bonus evil. Musashi's as fast as ever. We should be off ourselves to Kaneshi. A bounded field. Capture the minor spirit boss and sever the magical energy. It should destroy the field.
この魔力の高まり。
This is quite a surge of magical energy. Must be some kind of
手
gatekeeper.
分けして
We can't split up for these. Let's take them out one by one. I guess we gotta do both.
ではこの地を抑えよう。力を借りる。
はいはい捉えたよ。
Yeah, like, I'm not sure if that was meant to be like a difficult decision, but it's like, on the one hand, I can, like, solve the problem, which in the process will also, like, rescue a bunch of people that I actually care about. Or I can rescue somebody that I frankly want dead.
わかった我らが刃突き立てる。
Like, it wasn't really much of a decision for me.
躍動。見えている。とびきりのまじないを頼むぞ。キル。
この私を頼りにしてくれよ。魔力解放。
If I say Dory, somebody else murders Tsuchikimi, whatever his name is. Tsuchimikado. Yeah, I want to kill him. I don't want somebody else to kill him. I want to kill him. Like, I want to save Arya. I want to... I want to punish the person who hurt Kaya. I want to murder the person who messed with Saber. I have every reason to go kill Tsuchimikado and, like, no reason to save Dorothea. Oh, warrior saber. My sword shall not falter ere the evil ogre lies dead. Looks like he's in trouble. Let's help. Oh, he's dead. This guy's already dead. I do enjoy hitting things with shell gauges with super moves. It's like, that's cute, you're trying to be a threat. All settled then? I offer thanks once more. With a common foe, it is all but inevitable we fight side by side. Your own words. But how have you managed to resist being controlled this entire time? It's like I'm a saber, we have magic resistance. I do not know. The boss of Babylonians hears here the same. I guess some heroic spheres just can't be controlled. I presume it's divinity ranks. Huh, how infuriating. To think that I was also controlled once is extremely frustrating. So, even heroic spirits with masters have been possessed? And what of the evil ogre? I don't know about Lancer, but Ryder seems to be in the enemy's trap. It appears the latter has parted ways with their master. Is that so? Does that seem right to you? Nay, it is hard to believe the evil ogre being possessed. That is an ogre, an evil ogre that must be destroyed lest the world suffer. But its power rivals that of gods, a being not easily controlled by men. So yeah, it's probably divinity ranks. Gods. A depraved ogre god clad in lightning. I often wonder what lurks within that armor. A god of thunder? It's like none that I know of. Could magic of this age really summon something like a god? Not readily. So we don't know the answer. Oh well. Rogue Saber, are you going to chase after Ryder? No. Oh really? I thought you would prioritize eliminating Ryder. To slay the evil ogre. It is indeed my duty. However, if my foe has truly turned into a mere puppet, I must first uncover who holds the strings. I see. Well then, our goals are the same. Something I do notice also is that Ryder and Saber both have like the floating pauldron thing going on. So there's probably some kind of connection there. I am entrusting my Sword of the Rising Sun to you. Ooh, Saber friend. That should do it. Let's head for Kaneji. You want to give him some skills? I mean, I could. There's nothing stopping me. I've got enough skill points to give him everything, so may as well. With Circe, I could do that, or I could do that. With my saber... And with Yori... I do want this, but I can't reach it. I need to get 11 more skills from Saber before I can get here. I probably should do Battle Recollections off stream at some point. If only to unlock that, that one skill. I'm gonna poke around and look for things that I can pick up before I proceed inwards. It's the first time I've been allowed in here, for a generous definition of allowed. more linden. I can use that to make Gil happy. Thought I would find something like this. Skill jewel. I see a mountain in the distance. I like these candles. I'm a sucker for, like, ethereal flames. He's definitely got some kind of like sun theme going on, but I don't know enough to guess as to who he might actually be. Like, I didn't even know who Yamato Takeru was, so presumably Rogue Saber is going to be similarly obvious to me. Yeah, he's dead. Yeah, sadly, most of my relationship with Fate Grand Order is judging people for playing it. Which sounds kind of rude because it kind of is, but also, like, it's gacha. Like, the amount of money that you spend on, like, one servant, you could buy, like, 6 games. And just own them. Yeah, you don't have to spend your experience, it's just, like, quantifiably worse if you don't. Blue Oni is dead. I wonder if there's another fight if I go through the main door. Ooh, spiders. I don't know much of anything about Limbus Company, so I can't comment. So many particle effects on the screen at once. And he's dead. Oh, I wonder if that building over there is where Tamamo's spirit font is. This feels like another fight. There we go. Oh hey, more than one Oni. Yeah, like you're all talking about like gacha games that give freebies, but it's like, what if you played a game that wasn't a gacha and just... but you have everything, because you pay for the game and you got a whole game. Like, you've let them move the goalposts on you in a way that I don't agree with. And they're dead. There's a hole in the geometry over there. You see that rock? Directly over Yori's head. That shouldn't be there. Oh, anyway. Oh, I had the wrong saber equipped, but it worked out. I was trying to use Rolling Rapids. And it's dead. This piercing malevolence. Yes, the enemy draws near. Yori will soon face Tsuchimikado.
そのようだ
Seems that way. Even I understood how strange this magical energy is. Huh. Saber and Saber's master, is it? I wonder how you were able to escape the yoke of the waxing moon. Regardless, this is a mere nuisance. You can do naught but fall before me. You... Huh.
どうした
What happened? Wait, this feeling. Not you too. Stay away. If I kill you... No, I cannot. Killing you would... I...
より
Yori?
俺土見方
Damn you, Tsuchimikado. How many proud heroes must you corrupt?
この瞳
The violence in those eyes.
思考を切り替えろ
This warrior is no longer an ally that I can trust.
恐るべき敵
He's an enemy that I must fear. Can I seriously back? Rogue Saber, the bearer of infinite faith. I cannot, in fact, have seriously back.
特慈悲をくれてやれ。確実の無視や。
セイバー
すぐに行く
You know, this all could have been solved if we just had, like, a random guy with no powers and a crossbow. Just kind of like hanging out in the shadows, waiting to shoot Tsuchimikado in the throat as soon as he popped out to glow.
より奴は大技を放つぞ
すまない
脱獄せよ
力を借りる
分かった我らが刃突き立てる
そうだもらったやるものか
覚ませ火は熟した
ふうなんじゃ頼む
出番だな我らが刃突き立てる
I like that part of the animation for that is Yori, like, using his wind powers to, like, push it forward.
見えている
やむを得ん
見えている
Evil ogre. Is he resisting the spell? Oh, you're still alive, but for how much longer?
相性
Warrior Saber is resisting.
霊
Does it have something to do with his affinity, or his spirit origin trait?
人たちのみ
All I need is one chance, one stroke.
ああもう
Come on, this is such a pain.
かくなる上は
Why don't we just cut him and Tsuchimikado down all at
俺に
once?
考えがある
I have an idea. Continue fighting like this for the time being.
言い切ったな
You sound confident. Fine, I'll leave this to you.
こっちだ
すぐに行く
No shell for you. Desist. I said no. Rude.
奴は大技を放つぞ
見えているせい
せ は良いか。
来い。
出番だな。我らが刃。
I like how Yori was like, I've got a plan, and then the plan is to just hit Saber a bunch more. I really like those charge attacks. They are like the freest riposts. Ignore all those times that I messed up dashing into it. Saber's substitution gauge is full. But I perhaps want to save that for damage rather than shell breaking at this point. Granted, shells take a while to break no matter what if you're not a servant. Unless that happens. This should kill him. You know what would be really funny is if, like, it was meant to, like, stop the fight at, like, 10% health, but if I just kill him from, like, 30 to 0 in one hit, it just actually kills him. Saber, the sword. Oh. His weapon has been sundered. I am in your debt. Oh, and they deflected it, like, into Tsuchimikado's gut? That's awesome. Oh, it didn't kill him. Oh, Henri, thank you for the head pats. I appreciate them very much. Your aim cannot be faulted, but it is futile. The victor of this ritual shall be me, you see. Thank you for the hydration. And for the rotation. Well, Miyoshi Tsujimikado. It is just as Shosetsu said. Lurking in dinner. Enjoy your dinner. It's fairly close to the end of— ow, my bones. But I lived. On Miyoshi Tsujimikado, it is just as Shosetsu said. You're the one controlling the servants. As you like. I have no answers for meaningless questions. He's injured and getting dogs big. You must be clueless. The waxen moon is nothing more than a source of magical energy, no granter of wishes. Created with our singular resolve, it only grants wishes to us who created it. What? Minnows swarm and gather for the bait, for the wish. How ridiculous they look. As the rightful owner of the waxen moon, it falls to me to mete out punishment. Like this. Tsujimikado is Caster's master. He's running a command seal. More of them? They've been away from their spirit fonts for too long. We could just run around and wait until they all disappear, but we've come this far. There's no running. You gathered heroes from all places and ages to carry out such a worthless plan? What fool of a mage. Fool am I? I expected clever words from you, but you are merely a brash adventurer. Also, I noticed that Saber's sword is once again unsundered. It is so exhilarating watching master and servant fight to the death, and yet, you never cease to disappoint me. Shall I hear you beg for your lives? Or will you intone some paltry last words? Yuri, don't worry about them. If he dies, it's over. What a crock. Do it.
No.
And presumably Jean has murdered the heck out of Tsuchinagato. Yeah, he might have survived the first stab. I don't think he's gonna survive this one. You swine. Hey dude, that was like all of your organs. I cannot fall to some low-born ruffian. That's a heroic spirit, that's the opposite. Ryder, make haste, assist me. I got my kill still in. Nah, I consider this my kill. She may have gotten the last hit, but like I did all the work. And he is dead. The administrator has fulfilled his role. Now things are gonna heat up. Huh? Where am I? I did it. I saved Arya. Mission complete. Eh? Fancy meeting you lot here. Eh? This isn't my place. What the hell am I doing out here? And they exploded. What are you after? Are you working with Shosetsu? What a waste of time. Nobody's using me and nobody's useful enough for me to use. Then why? Hey, you look like a human who knows. Eh? You know where hell is. I saw through you in a glance. Under that polite facade, you're a slavering beast. What a terrible thing to say. You can't fool me. What you've got locked away inside is not so different from mine. Come on, show it to me. Lancer. Understood. Let's go, Yori. Jeanne d'Arc, the corrupted maiden. Your master cannot see this world. This way only leads to death. Hopefully, let me just snooze the ants. Hopefully I'll get a chance to save my game after fighting, Lancer. Almost like no strike for you. For some reason, I am struggling with her timings. I'm sure I'll figure it out. And then I caught fire. I can't take credit for that one.
力を借りる。
分かった。我らが刃突き立てる。
And then we ran her over with a boat made out of magic.
来い。
任せろ。貫く。火は熟した。
And there goes her shell.
遅いな。もらった。
貫く。
受けてみろ。頼む。
分かった。我らが刃突き立てる。覚悟。
Prepare yourself, Lancer.
ランサ
Lancer,
ー
I command you.
やつを
Drag that cur, Miyamoto Iori, down to hell. As you command. Was that a command spell? Yes, it was. Okay. And she got her shell back for free. That's lame. And it fully healed her.
霊樹による守護。
She's protected by the command spell. Our attacks will do nothing until we destroy it.
ならば
I shall hold the
武
line.
者のセイバー。
Warrior Saber, are you sure?
気遣い無用
Your concern is unwarranted. Defeating the cohort of the evil ogre is one of my duties. Let us fight together. Every time he does that, I'm afraid that he's going to cut his finger off.
あらゆる触りを切らん覚悟悪鬼の友柄
And the good news is, one more command spell out of Chiemon, and he's going to have none left. At which point, presumably, Lancer will murder him for being an edgelord.
逃がしなさい。
送ってくれるけよ
The protection has been nullified. That was my last try spell. Which, to be fair, isn't a very expensive thing to replace, but like, that was my last try spell. She's gonna jump over the thing, isn't she? Nope, sniped her out of it. Awesome. No. And she gets back anyway. Oh well, I got her down to half. That counts for something, I presume. Let me just use that a second time. I mean, I did get a hit splat, so like presumably it counted. Wrong button.
我らに罰を覚悟は良い出番だな我らが刃
I wonder how many cutscenes are going to interrupt this fight.
分かった
遅いな。
見えている貫く
The good news is, both sabers are slowly filling up with substitution gauge. They should both become available at roughly the same time.
我らに罰を悔やみなさい当たりませんより奴は大技を放つぞ我らに罰を
受けてみろ。
避けるなよ残念だったな残念だ
もらった。
祈りましょう祈りましょう
I'm kind of just smashing at this point, if I'm being entirely honest. Looks like non-rogue saber's about to come on.
我らに罰を大技が来る構えろ
I wonder how close to having a double phantasm saber is. Right, she's broken. Awesome. Oh, and John is dead.
ここまでか。
The party's over. Stand down, Lancer. And then we stabbed her 37 times so that he couldn't have her back and she could heal. Ugh, she got away.
己ランサー
Just you wait, Lancer. I'll deal with you next time. Yuri?
いや、
Sorry, I
少
was
し考
lost in
えてい
thought.
た。今宵はさすが
We
に
certainly
冷
had a
静
fair
な
bit
す
of
ぎた。
fighting. We must rest and plan for the future.
それから、
Warrior Saber, thank you for your help.
礼は無用。
Thanks are unnecessary. I'm merely fulfilled my own duties.
悪鬼は立たねばな
The evil ogre must be destroyed, as must their ally. All I did was swing my sword.
ふむなんと
refreshing
爽や
words.
かな
Well
物言いだ
said.
君を
You, the brave warrior, I have a feeling that we will fight together again.
ああ、
Indeed,
いずれ悪鬼が闇
the
の
evil
底に
ogre will eventually drop the curtain of darkness. May you keep that in mind.
闇の帳。
The curtain of darkness. And there's Yui. We did it. Took a bit longer than one might have expected, but it got done. Exactly. I rescued Arya. Mission complete. That was sure a noise.
どうしたテイ？
What's the matter, Jing?
なあ、いや、
Ah, well, I just want to make sure that
や
my...
はり冷蔵は
I just want to make sure where my
預けたままだ
mystic code went. I see you still have it with you.
失念していたな。
My bad, I'd forgotten about that. I'll return it to you right
い
away.
や、無用だ。
There's no need. Hold on to it, throw it away, do whatever you like with it.
貴重な冷蔵なのは確かだ
It
が、
might be valuable, but it's not one of a
一点物でも
kind.
ないしな。
There might be some objections from my men, though. Anyway, how are you? Has there been any changes on the battlefront?
あ
Yes, the ritual
あ、義の
observer,
見届け役。
or rather, the mastermind who pretended to be so, is dead.
サーバントたちを操っ
He
て
was the one
いた
controlling
人
the
物だ。
servants. That won't happen again.
そうか。
I see. I'm sure this will set Archer's mind at rest. Archer is dead. Archer doesn't have any thoughts.
貴殿はまだ赤坂
Are
に
you still in Akasaka?
間もなく立つところ
I am soon to depart. A bit earlier than I'd intended, but Lord Yorinobu sent a messenger to me. It appears that fighting has grown fierce back home in my country.
陰ながら
I pray for your victory, Shingon.
ありがとう
My thanks, Miyamoto Iori. I shall attain my wish with my own
そ
hands,
ちらこそ
and I want to see you moving on to the next round. You still have the option to do so.
そういえば以前
That reminds me, didn't you once say you wanted to protect Edo and those who live here?
あ
I did.
それは
If that is your reason for fighting, then wouldn't your wish be something else?
なあイオリ
Tell me, Iori, what is your
あ
wish?
それ
That's,
いや
sorry, maybe I cried too much. Forgive me.
さて
Well then, I am off. Farewell, Iori, until we meet again.
何を願う
My wish, huh? As I suspected,
一門を復古し
it was all done to restore his family name and regain power over the capital.
英月が万物の
He
願望
coasted
機
the
であると
shogunate
嘘偽
and lies
り
of
を
the
述べ
waxing
て
moon's
ばかりと
omnipotence.
しかし
But
万能ではなかろうと
while it may not be omnipotent, it must contain tremendous magical energy.
それに
And more importantly, if you get enough magical energy, it's kind of the same thing. If I could, with this, like enough raw mana is basically the same thing as being omnipotent. Like at a certain point, the things that you want just start becoming the things that happen. That day, a swordsman visited Musashi's grave.
剣士が訪ねる
Shinmen Musashi
Shinmen Musashi.
その生涯において
His sword was
百戦百
unmatched.
勝
He never lost a duel.
剣術において負けはなし
まさしく
Precisely.
勝てぬと悟ると
One must not fight a stronger opponent head
戦わ
on.
ぬゆえな武蔵の標法
I should learn from Musashi's tactics.
師匠と
Were you acquainted with
顔見知り
Master?
ですか
I mean, he brought flowers to the grave, presumably. Yes.
随分と
Long
昔
ago, we dueled for our Lord's honor.
で試合した中でな結果はこやつの
His shrewd strategy won the day. I mean, one of you brought a metal sword, the other one brought a couple of paddles,
断り地の断りのみならず
combining heaven, earth,
時
and
の
even
断り
time.
まで持ち込んでのそれは見事
It
な
was a
早業であった
magnificent feat.
それはどこ
Where did that happen?
巌流島
Ganryojima.
少年の脳裏に
Master's words flashed through the youth's
師
mind.
匠が語りしとある解雇団己に並ぶ
A
剣士と
deadly
の試
duel
合
with a swordsman of equal
舞
skill,
台となった小
and the
島の
island
名
where it
こ
took
そ
place.
俺を
Please, take me as your disciple.
何故
Why should I?
武蔵が
If
恐れ
even
た
Musashi
剣な
feared
ら
your sword, then
心得た
very well. Completed chapter 4. I just got an achievement for that. And there's a save. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it each and every time. We've kind of gone over time for tonight, but I couldn't save in the middle of that. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it each and every time. Next scheduled stream is going to be on Wednesday. The game is going to be Ocarina of Time Master Quest. I'm personally of the opinion, of the belief that I'm going to be beating the game then, so if you want to be there for that. The next time that I am playing this game in particular is going to be on Friday. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful night. I hope to see you again. Good night. Oh, and thank you for the head pats. I appreciate them.